The morning had started like any other. Sunlight poured through the blinds of my apartment, casting long stripes across the wooden floor. I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, trying to shake the unease that had settled in my chest. Vanessa was supposed to meet me for breakfast at our favorite cafe overlooking the river, a spot where the city seemed to pause for us. We had been together for almost 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and for all appearances, everything was perfect. Or at least, I had thought it was. The message arrived at 9:17 a.m., short, casual, and chilling in its simplicity. Can't make it this morning. Something came up. I'll call you later. I shrugged it off, assuming work or a last-minute meeting. Vanessa had always been busy with her career, social events, and endless networking. But the tone felt off, too neutral, too detached. I shook my head, trying to push the feeling away, and got ready for my day. Hours passed, but my mind kept wandering back to that message. Then my phone buzzed again. A friend's name flashed on the screen, panic written all over her short text. "Ethan, you need to see this now." A link. At first, I didn't understand what it was. A live stream? A video? Something trivial, I hoped. But when I clicked it, everything in my world froze. Vanessa was there, smiling, radiant, wearing a dress that left no doubt. It was a wedding gown. And beside her, another woman. Another bride. My brain refused to process it. I clicked the video again, blinking in disbelief. She wasn't marrying some distant acquaintance. She was marrying Olivia, her rival, someone I had crossed paths with occasionally at events and mutual gatherings. My stomach churned. My vision blurred. My heart felt like it had been punched. The city, the sunlight, the noise of my apartment, it all faded. My entire world narrowed to that screen. Every memory I had of Vanessa, every promise, every whispered forever, now felt like a lie. I tried calling her. Nothing. Texted her. Ignored. My messages vanished into silence. Each unanswered message felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Then came the messages from mutual friends, hesitant, careful, apologetic. "Ethan, we're so sorry. She got married today. To someone else. We thought you should hear it from us first." Polite words, but they only sharpened the sting. Vanessa hadn't just left me. She had hidden a whole life from me. She had planned, prepared, and executed this betrayal without a hint. I sat on my couch, numb, shaking, staring at the screen. Panic, confusion, anger, they all collided, leaving me paralyzed. But beneath it, a spark began to grow. A spark of something I hadn't expected, resolve. Hours turned into pacing, searching, obsessing over every detail. How long had she been planning this? Who was Olivia really? Why Vanessa? Why now? The questions twisted like knives, relentless and sharp. Every shared memory, the trips, the promises, the laughs, was suddenly poisoned. Then a notification arrived from social media. I hesitated but clicked. A photo. Vanessa, standing beneath a floral arch, hand in hand with Olivia, rings shining, smiles wide. Caption. "Forever begins today, ring #new beginnings #love wins." The words cut like glass. New beginnings. For her, not for me. My chest tightened. My vision blurred with a mix of rage and grief. I dropped my phone. Then, somewhere deep inside, clarity emerged. I couldn't undo this. I couldn't stop her secret wedding. But I could act. I could reclaim my life. I could respond in a way that would show her that betrayal had consequences. Instinctively, I began researching Olivia. Social media profiles, interviews, professional events, public appearances. She was polished, confident, independent, a woman used to standing on her own, someone who commanded attention effortlessly. And perhaps, I realized, someone who could be convinced to stand with me in rewriting this story. The thought was audacious, risky, almost reckless. But the fire in my chest, anger, grief, and resolve, burned hotter than fear. I could feel it now. Revenge wasn't enough. I wanted agency, dignity, and perhaps even a sense of thrill. By evening, I sat at our favorite cafe, the one where Vanessa and I had shared so many quiet mornings. The empty chair across from me was a silent witness to betrayal. I sipped my coffee bitter, letting it match the bitterness roiling in my chest. I made a decision. Tomorrow, the first step would be mine. I would confront the situation not with despair, but with audacity. I would not beg. I would not plead. I would act boldly, strategically, and decisively. By midnight, a plan was taking shape. Olivia would be my first step. Not as a romantic partner, not yet, but as a force to reclaim my agency and rewrite the narrative. She might be a rival, yes, but she also represented opportunity. An opportunity, in moments like these, was more valuable than heartbreak. Sleep came fitfully. Dreams swirled with betrayal, confrontation, and impossible strategies. But amidst the chaos, a single truth crystallized. Vanessa's betrayal had shattered my world, but out of those shards, a new fire had emerged. A fire of resolve, of courage, and of audacious, calculated plans. Tomorrow, the first move would be mine. And nothing, not betrayal, not heartbreak, not Vanessa, would stop me. The morning after discovering Vanessa's secret wedding, the world felt heavier. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, but it was sharp and cold, reflecting the storm in my chest. I woke with a dull ache, a mix of disbelief, betrayal, and an anger that refused to subside. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of her. The photos, the small gifts, even the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. It was unbearable. I tried contacting her, desperate for answers. My fingers hovered over my phone, trembling as I typed, deleted, and retyped messages. Why? How could you do this to us? Was everything a lie? Nothing. No reply. Silence, cold and unyielding, became her answer. Each ignored message was another blow, driving the knife of betrayal deeper. Friends tried to console me, but their words were hollow, incapable of piercing the fog of shock. Ethan, maybe she made a mistake. Maybe there's an explanation, one friend said cautiously. An explanation? I had seen the photos, the videos, the radiant smiles. There was no mistake. There was intention. Vanessa had chosen another life, another partner, without a single word to me. The anger coiled tighter, intertwining with grief, leaving me gasping for air. I spent hours walking the city streets, trying to escape the memories. Every familiar cafe, every street corner we had shared, now seemed tainted. Images from the past replayed like a cruel montage. Our first date, our engagement, the whispered promises at midnight, the way she had held my hand and told me I was her world. And now all of it felt like a lie. By mid-afternoon, exhaustion overtook me, but my mind refused to rest. Amid the grief, a small spark of clarity began to emerge. Vanessa had taken a part of my life, yes, but she would not dictate the rest. Betrayal had burned my heart, but it would not break me. I returned home and began to research Olivia, Vanessa's rival and secret spouse. Social media profiles, public records, interviews, events, anything that could give insight. She was intelligent, confident, and used to being in control. She wasn't a villain, yet she was a force, someone I could turn to my advantage. Hours passed, the city quieting outside, as I built a map of connections, habits, and routines. Slowly, a plan formed. Vanessa had thought she could humiliate me with secrecy and betrayal. She had underestimated the fire she had ignited. And that fire would become my weapon. Even as I plotted, grief lingered. I remembered Vanessa's laughter, her touch, the way her eyes once held mine. The sorrow was raw, but it was no longer a chain, it was fuel. Every tear, every sleepless night, every pang of loss became energy, energy that would drive me forward. Then, an unexpected message arrived through a mutual friend. I don't know if you should see this, but she didn't expect you to find out so quickly. Attached was a candid photo of Vanessa and Olivia. Intimate, yes, but not romantic, just a glimpse into the life Vanessa had created without me. What caught my attention wasn't Vanessa's happiness, it was Olivia. There was a subtle confidence in her gaze, a controlled intensity that matched my own. And in that moment, I realized something dangerous. This rivalry could be more than just leverage. It could be the beginning of an unexpected alliance. I spent the night strategizing. Every potential encounter, every possible conversation, every subtle move was imagined, calculated, rehearsed. The idea of approaching Olivia wasn't about love. It was about reclaiming control, asserting my agency, and ensuring that Vanessa's betrayal would not dictate my life. Sleep came in short bursts, punctuated by dreams of confrontations, schemes, and possibilities. The heartbreak remained, but it had evolved into determination. My mind was sharp, my focus unyielding. By morning, the grief was still there, but so was my resolve. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with emotional risk and social complexity. But the fire inside me, the desire for justice, for strategy, for reclaiming dignity, burned brighter than ever. I rose from my bed, looked at my reflection in the mirror, and spoke to the man staring back. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. And with that, the first step toward a bold new chapter began. The heartbreak of yesterday had become the catalyst for the audacity of tomorrow. Tomorrow, Olivia would be my first move. Not out of love, not yet, but to reclaim what Vanessa had taken and to turn betrayal into strategy. And this time I would win. The city felt different that morning. The sunlight sliced through the glass towers and reflected off the asphalt, sharp and unforgiving, much like the emotions swirling in my chest. After days of heartbreak and sleepless nights, I was ready to move forward, to act, to reclaim control. The first step would be confronting Olivia, the woman who had unexpectedly entered Vanessa's life, and now mine. I had studied her for hours, obsessively. Every social media post, every interview, every public appearance had been analyzed for clues. Olivia exuded confidence and independence, the kind of woman who drew attention effortlessly. Her poise was magnetic, her aura unshakable. She was intelligent, ambitious, and perhaps dangerous. And that made her irresistible, not as a conquest, but as a challenge. I waited outside the cafe she frequented, a small boutique spot tucked away in a quiet street. From across the road, I could see her sitting at a corner table, laptop open, fingers moving across the keyboard with precise control. She looked up occasionally, sipping her coffee, scanning her surroundings with a sharp, calculating gaze. And then our eyes met. For a moment, my world froze. There was recognition there, a flicker of understanding, and a hint of amusement. It was as though she had expected me, had anticipated this encounter long before I had planned it. Taking a deep breath, I crossed the street and approached her table. She didn't flinch, didn't offer a hint of surprise. Her eyes held mine, steady, piercing. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm, deliberate. "I was wondering when you'd show up." My pulse quickened. How could she have known? Had she been watching me as well? Was this part of the game? Olivia. I began cautiously, trying to mask my surprise with composure. "We need to talk." She tilted her head, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I agree. Sit." I took the seat across from her, feeling the tension in the air, the unspoken challenge that neither of us fully acknowledged yet. Olivia wasn't just a rival. She was formidable, perceptive, and clearly aware of the delicate balance we were about to navigate. "So," she said finally, leaning back slightly, "you're the one Vanessa left behind." The word struck me with a mix of shock and fury. She didn't need to explain anything. She had observed, understood, and articulated my pain with chilling precision. "And you," I said slowly, keeping my voice measured, "are the reason she moved on so quickly?" Her smile was faint, almost enigmatic. "Not exactly. I didn't move her. She made her choice. I simply existed." The subtlety of her words was disarming. Olivia wasn't arrogant, nor did she seek to belittle me. She was simply perceptive. She understood the dynamics, the stakes, and the undercurrent of tension that had led us to this moment. "I see," I said carefully. "Then you understand why I'm here." "Do I?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Are you here to confront me? To demand answers? Or to challenge me?" I studied her, noting the poise and confidence in every gesture. She was no ordinary rival. She wasn't someone who could be intimidated by anger or charm alone. She required strategy, intelligence, and boldness, the kind of qualities I was willing to summon in full. "I'm here to understand," I said firmly, "to see what I'm dealing with." She laughed softly, a sound that was melodic yet sharp. "Then we're playing the game of observation." Interesting. For the next hour, we talked cautiously, each probing the other, revealing just enough to maintain an advantage. Olivia spoke about ambition, independence, and navigating a world where appearances often overshadowed reality. I revealed my grief, my anger, and the sting of betrayal. But I held my strategy close, refusing to let vulnerability become weakness. Through it all, I realized something unexpected. Olivia wasn't a mere obstacle in this story. She was a partner in strategy, someone whose intelligence and strength matched my own. She challenged me, tested me, and perhaps even intrigued me. By the time we parted, the sun had dipped low, painting the city in gold and crimson. The encounter had changed everything. Olivia had emerged not just as Vanessa's rival, but as a force in my own life, someone who would push me, challenge me, and possibly, in ways I hadn't anticipated, become something more than a strategic ally. I walked home with a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension. The heartbreak from Vanessa's betrayal still lingered, but it had evolved. It was no longer merely pain. It was determination, strategy, and the intoxicating thrill of a new game, one where I held the reins. That night, Staring out over the city skyline, I realized that the rival had appeared, not just in Vanessa's story, but in mine. And the rules were about to change. The fire of betrayal had been replaced by the spark of opportunity, and I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The game had begun. The days following my encounter with Olivia were a whirlwind of calculation, strategy, and restless energy. Vanessa's betrayal had left a scar, but Olivia's presence, her intelligence, her poise, her audacity, ignited something else within me, a thrill I hadn't felt in months. I was no longer just a man scorned. I was a man reclaiming control, rewriting the rules of a game I hadn't chosen, but now dominated. Every detail mattered. How Olivia moved, how she spoke, even the subtle expressions she let slip, nothing escaped my attention. She was sharp, perceptive, and strong-willed, a rival in every sense, yet someone whose alignment could become a turning point in my story. My plan was audacious, risky, and dangerous, but it was precisely the kind of boldness this situation demanded. The decision crystallized in my mind with a clarity that surprised me. I would marry Olivia. Not for love, not yet, but to assert agency, to reclaim dignity, and to demonstrate that betrayal carried consequences. Vanessa had thought she could humiliate me, leave me shattered, and move on with her life. She hadn't counted on the fire she had lit in me, the fire of strategy, audacity, and the desire to take control. Logistics had to be considered. How does one propose marriage to someone independent, strong, and unaccustomed to being maneuvered into emotional situations? How do you ensure that every move is deliberate, that your intentions are clear, and that no misstep could compromise the plan? The key was honesty, but a strategic kind. I would not beg. I would not grovel. I would present my intentions clearly, with precision, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The audacity itself would serve as leverage, a statement of power and determination. I contacted Olivia through a trusted intermediary, keeping the message brief and neutral. We need to meet. Tomorrow. No interruptions. The reply was immediate, almost eerily so. Tomorrow. I'll be there. The single sentence sent adrenaline surging through me. The first move was set. The game was escalating. The next morning, I arrived at a discreet civil registry office. Small, unassuming, perfect for our audacious plan. Olivia arrived shortly after, her presence commanding even in casual attire. She studied me with a quiet intensity, a mixture of curiosity and challenge dancing in her eyes. "You know what you're doing?" she asked, her tone calm yet edged with intrigue. "I do," I replied evenly. "And I hope you do too." We went through the formalities with deliberate precision. Every signature, every document, every procedural step was executed without hesitation. The air between us was charged, electric, tense, and undeniably thrilling. When the registrar handed us the marriage certificate, I felt an overwhelming mix of victory and liberation. Vanessa's betrayal still stung, but I had reclaimed agency. I had taken a step that transformed heartbreak into power, turning chaos into opportunity. Outside the office, the city seemed to hum with recognition of the audacity we had displayed. Olivia walked beside me, every gesture and movement exuding confidence. It was clear that this marriage was more than paperwork. It was a declaration, a statement that the narrative had shifted. "Bold move," she said softly, her eyes locking with mine. "Boldness is just the first step," I replied. "Strategy comes next." Over the next few days, we navigated the complexities of presenting ourselves as a legitimate couple. Calls to friends, explanations to family, subtle maneuvering in social circles. All were executed with careful precision. Olivia's reactions fascinated me. Perceptive, strategic, yet with glimpses of softness that hinted at depth beneath the confident exterior. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized that this audacious decision was changing me too. My heartbreak, my anger, and my grief had evolved into clarity and focus. I was no longer defined by betrayal. I was defined by action, by strategy, and by the audacity to seize control. One evening, after coordinating another round of public appearances, we found ourselves alone on a quiet street, the city bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. "You've changed since this began," Olivia said, her voice low, almost contemplative. "Betrayal teaches a lot," I replied, meeting her gaze. "But control teaches more. Power isn't given, it's claimed. And sometimes, claiming it requires audacity." She smiled faintly, a mixture of approval and curiosity. "Then perhaps this is just the beginning, for both of us." The intimacy of the moment was undeniable. Sparks of unspoken connection lingered in every glance, every movement. The alliance we had forged in audacity and strategy was evolving into something more complex, a partnership that carried the subtle thrill of potential attraction, tension, and respect. In the following days, we continued our careful dance. Every appearance, every interaction, every subtle message reinforced our unity and strategy. We were no longer passive observers of Vanessa's life. We had become central figures in our own story, commanding attention, influence, and respect. Vanessa, of course, was aware of the shift. Reports from mutual friends and glimpses on social media hinted at her surprise and perhaps unease. She had expected weakness, despair, and retreat. Instead, she saw strength, precision, and audacity. Every move Olivia and I made was a statement. Betrayal had consequences, and I was no longer the man she thought she could manipulate. Through it all, something unexpected began to grow, a subtle, magnetic attraction between Olivia and me. The sparks that had flickered in our first encounter were now more tangible, layered with respect, admiration, and the thrill of shared strategy. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and exciting. By the end of the week, the audacity of our actions had shifted the narrative irrevocably. Vanessa's secret plans and manipulations no longer held power over my life. Olivia and I had transformed heartbreak into opportunity, betrayal into a calculated alliance, and strategy into a subtle, thrilling dance of influence, respect, and the beginnings of connection. That night, as we stood on the balcony of our apartment, overlooking the city, I felt a clarity I hadn't known in months. Boldness had changed everything. Strategy had created opportunity. And the unexpected presence of Olivia, once a rival, now a partner, had transformed my world entirely. "What now?" she asked, leaning slightly closer. "Now," I repeated, smiling. "Now we move forward. Boldly. Together. On our terms." The city below shimmered with possibility. For the first time in months, I felt in control, empowered, and ready. The bold decision had been made. The audacious step taken. And the next chapter, charged with potential, strategy, and perhaps even desire, was waiting. The game had escalated, and I was ready to play. The days following our bold move to marry were a blur of coordination, observation, and subtle maneuvering. Vanessa's betrayal no longer consumed me with grief. It had transformed into a fire of determination and strategy. Every interaction, every choice, every glance became a calculated move on a board I was now mastering. Olivia's presence beside me was electric. She wasn't just Vanessa's rival anymore. She was my ally, my equal, and perhaps something more. Every word she spoke, every plan she suggested, every expression she let slip revealed a mind as sharp and ambitious as my own. She challenged me, tested me, and sometimes even provoked emotions I hadn't expected to feel so soon. Together, we navigated social appearances, family introductions, and subtle manipulations of public perception. The world watched as a united front, a pair of calculated performers, projecting power, confidence, and influence. Friends whispered, acquaintances speculated, and Vanessa, though still a lingering presence in my thoughts, was now observing from afar, powerless to alter the narrative we were crafting. Power was intoxicating. The ability to control perception, influence outcomes, and anticipate the reactions of others fueled a rush that rivaled even the sting of betrayal. Every calculated smile, every perfectly timed entrance, every subtle demonstration of unity reinforced that we were no longer victims of circumstance. We had become architects of our destiny. Yet amidst the strategy and calculated moves, something unexpected stirred between Olivia and me. Subtle glances, fleeting touches, and moments of unspoken understanding hinted at a connection beyond mere alliance. The tension was electric, dangerous, and thrilling, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps strategy and desire could coexist. One evening, after an elaborate social engagement designed to reinforce our unity, Olivia and I found ourselves alone on the balcony of our apartment. The city below glittered, oblivious to the complexities unfolding above. "You've changed," she said softly, her gaze searching mine. "There's fire in you now, strength you didn't have before." "Betrayal teaches a lot," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "But control, strategy, and taking charge teach more. And revenge, it teaches clarity." She nodded, a faint, approving smile gracing her lips. "Then perhaps this is just the beginning, for both of us." The words carried a weight that surprised me. This wasn't just strategy anymore. It was partnership, trust, and an unspoken possibility that something deeper could grow between us. We were formidable together, a balance of intellect, audacity, and ambition, and the subtle spark between us was undeniable. The following days were a delicate dance. Every public appearance, every subtle interaction with friends, every social maneuver reinforced our unity and strength. We moved like pieces on a chessboard, anticipating moves, countering potential threats, and subtly asserting dominance in spaces Vanessa had once assumed we would falter. Vanessa's presence lingered in the background, a shadow of her former influence. She had expected despair, heartbreak, and retreat. Instead, she saw strength, confidence, and audacity, the exact opposite of what she had anticipated. Every calculated smile, every subtle assertion of presence reminded her that she had underestimated me, and the consequences of her betrayal were becoming increasingly clear. Power, I realized, was not just public perception. It was influence, control, and the ability to navigate the emotional landscape of those around us. Olivia matched me step for step, anticipating reactions, providing insight, and subtly guiding our path forward. She was more than a rival. She was a partner in every sense of the word. Amidst this dynamic, the line between strategy and emotion blurred. The subtle attraction between us became harder to ignore. Glances lingered, touches carried meaning, and conversations carried layers that neither of us fully acknowledged but both felt. It was dangerous, exhilarating, and impossible to dismiss. One night, after a particularly intense day of social appearances and subtle manipulations, we sat alone in the apartment, the city lights painting patterns on the walls. "Ethan, you're different now," Olivia said, her voice low and intimate. "There's focus, clarity, and a sense of power you didn't have before." "Vanessa's betrayal forced me to evolve," I admitted. "But so did this partnership. Power isn't about revenge alone. It's about reclaiming control, creating opportunity, and finding strength in unexpected alliances." Her eyes softened for a brief moment, and I felt a stirring in my chest I hadn't anticipated. Partnership was evolving into something more. Mutual respect, admiration, and subtle desire intertwined, creating a tension that was thrilling and unpredictable. Over the next week, our bond strengthened, not just as allies, but as individuals who understood and complemented each other. Every move we made reinforced the narrative of control, strength, and subtle dominance. We were no longer just reacting to Vanessa's betrayal. We were shaping a new reality, one in which we commanded influence and respect. And amidst the strategy and power plays, the undercurrent of attraction grew. The connection between us, intellectual, emotional, and subtle, was undeniable. The sparks that had flickered during our first encounter had evolved into something deeper, more complex, and profoundly thrilling. By the end of the week, it was clear. Betrayal had been transformed into opportunity, heartbreak had evolved into empowerment, and strategy had become a nuanced dance of influence, respect, and the beginnings of love. Vanessa, once a central figure in my world, had become peripheral. Her choices, secrets, and manipulations no longer dictated my narrative. Olivia and I had shifted the balance. We were no longer pawns. We were players commanding attention, influence, and perhaps even each other's hearts. That night, as I looked out over the city skyline with Olivia at my side, I realized the truth. Love and revenge were not mutually exclusive. They could coexist, layered and intertwined, demanding intelligence, courage, and audacity. Olivia had become more than a partner in strategy. She was central to my life, a force as formidable as any I had encountered, and perhaps even something I was willing to risk my heart for. "What now?" she asked softly, leaning slightly against me. "Now," I said, feeling the clarity of purpose settle over me. "We move forward, together, boldly, without fear. We've turned betrayal into power, heartbreak into strategy, and perhaps we're discovering something more." Her smile, radiant and genuine, reflected the unexpected thrill of this partnership. "Together," she said. For the first time in weeks, I felt not just triumph, but a profound sense of possibility. We had reclaimed agency, established power, and discovered a connection neither of us had anticipated. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, I felt equipped to face it, with Olivia by my side as partner, ally, and perhaps even as the beginnings of love. Betrayal had tested me. Heartbreak had hardened me. But now, through boldness, strategy, and the emergence of unexpected connection, I had reclaimed my story. And together, we were unstoppable. The city felt electric that morning, alive with possibility and anticipation. After weeks of heartbreak, strategy, and bold action, I finally felt a sense of clarity and control. Vanessa's betrayal had ignited a storm within me, but through audacity, precision, and partnership with Olivia, I had transformed that storm into power. Now, it was time to claim the ultimate victory, both publicly and personally. Olivia and I moved with purpose. Every decision we made was deliberate, every step calculated, and every appearance orchestrated to reinforce the narrative we had created. We weren't just a couple on paper. We were a force, a statement, a visible testament to resilience and audacity. We had arranged a high-profile social event, one that would cement our presence, showcase our unity, and ensure that Vanessa's betrayal was rendered inconsequential. Friends, family, and acquaintances would witness the undeniable truth. Ethan and Olivia were in control, unshakable, and untouchable. As we entered the hall, the reactions were immediate. Whispers circled the room, glances lingered, and the subtle tension was palpable. Vanessa was there, of course, a shadow of her previous influence, her expression carefully neutral, but betraying a flicker of surprise. She had expected despair and retreat. Instead, she saw strength, strategy, and a quiet dominance she had never anticipated. Olivia walked beside me, radiant and composed, every movement confident and deliberate. We were synchronized, a team in every sense. Our alliance was more than practical. It was electric, dynamic, and unshakable. "Ethan, this is impressive," Olivia murmured, her voice warm yet tinged with challenge. "Impressive," I repeated, a small smile crossing my lips. But this is just the beginning. The evening unfolded as we had planned. Subtle gestures, carefully timed conversations, and small, deliberate displays of unity reinforced our position. We were no longer victims. We were architects of our destiny, commanding attention, influence, and respect. Vanessa's reactions were quiet but telling. She had underestimated me, assuming my heartbreak would dictate my actions. Instead, she witnessed my transformation, from scorned fiancé to strategic, audacious partner. Every glance she stole, every whisper she caught, confirmed the shift. She no longer held power over my life. Later, as the guests departed and the hall emptied, Olivia and I found ourselves alone on the balcony, the city skyline glittering below. The lights reflected the culmination of weeks of strategy, audacity, and subtle emotional shifts. "We did it," Olivia said softly, leaning slightly against me. "Yes," I replied, feeling the weight of every calculated move lift from my shoulders. "We've turned betrayal into opportunity, heartbreak into strategy, and uncertainty into triumph." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, the calculated distance melted into intimacy. "And what about us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took her hand, feeling the electricity of connection and the subtle thrill of shared victory. "Us," I repeated, a small smile forming. "I think this is the start of something new, something we create together." The truth was undeniable. Olivia had become more than a strategic ally. She was central to my life, my partner in every sense, and the unexpected spark between us had grown into something meaningful. Our connection, intellectual, emotional, and subtly romantic, was undeniable. Over the next few weeks, our partnership evolved naturally. Social appearances continued, each one reinforcing our narrative. But beyond the strategy, there was something more: trust, understanding, and the beginnings of a genuine bond. Every subtle touch, every shared glance, every quiet moment together strengthened the connection we had forged amidst chaos. Vanessa's presence became increasingly irrelevant. She was a figure of the past, her betrayal a catalyst for transformation, but no longer a factor in our story. We had reclaimed agency, asserted power, and discovered connection where we least expected it. One evening, standing together on the balcony, the city lights reflecting in our eyes, I realized the magnitude of what had been accomplished. Heartbreak had been transformed into empowerment. Betrayal had become a stepping stone to audacity. And through it all, Olivia had emerged not just as an ally, but as something profoundly significant: a partner, a confidant, and perhaps even love. "What now?" she asked, her hand finding mine naturally, confidently, as if it had always belonged there. "Now," I said, my voice steady and filled with conviction, "we live boldly together without fear. We've claimed our triumph, and this is just the beginning." The city stretched endlessly before us, a testament to possibility, resilience, and the power of audacity. The shadows of betrayal had lifted. The fire of revenge had cooled into strategy and empowerment. And the warmth of new beginnings promised love, partnership, and a life reclaimed. Not just for me, but for us. In the weeks that followed, Olivia and I continued to navigate the delicate balance of public perception and private connection. We were visible, powerful, and undeniable, but we also nurtured the bond that had begun in strategy and grown into trust and subtle affection. The sparks between us were no longer accidental. They were intentional, a reflection of mutual respect, admiration, and the thrilling potential of something deeper. And as I reflected on the journey from betrayal to triumph, from heartbreak to empowerment, I realized one undeniable truth. Life is unpredictable, and strength comes not from avoiding pain, but from transforming it into opportunity. Olivia had become my partner in more ways than one. She had challenged me, inspired me, and in the process changed my life. The story that began with betrayal had ended with victory, but it also opened the door to something far more powerful. Partnership, love, and the audacity to shape our destiny together. To us, I whispered, raising an imaginary glass, my hand brushing hers. To us, Olivia echoed, her smile radiant and genuine. The city below continued its endless hum, oblivious to the storms we had weathered, the battles we had fought, and the victories we had claimed. But above it all, standing together, we knew the truth. Betrayal had tested us, strategy had defined us, and love, unexpected, thrilling, and real, had found us. Together, we faced the future, unafraid, unstoppable, and fully in control of our narrative. The game was no longer about revenge, heartbreak, or betrayal. It was about life, audacity, and the thrilling possibilities of partnership and love. And in that moment, I knew that nothing, not the past, not obstacles, not uncertainty, could ever stop us.